start the meeting?
Yes, I think so.
Yes.
All right. All right, and in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, cue.
Good evening and welcome to Pleasanton City Council meeting. Before we start our actual meeting, we do need to have a special meeting of the Geological Hazard Abatement District. And in accordance with Governor Newsom's executive orders N-20-20 and N-35-20 and COVID-19 pandemic protocols, the Jihad and City Council meetings are being conducted in a virtual setting using Zoom. Council members and staff are participating from remote locations, and everyone is practicing appropriate social distancing. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting live on Channel 29 and online through TV 30 and the city's website, as noted on the agenda. These are unprecedented times, but we are absolutely committed to continuing the essential work of the city, and we do so in accordance with Alameda County's shelter-in-place order. And with that, if the clerk could, let me call the meeting to order, and of the Geological Hazard Abatement District, and I'd ask the city clerk to please call the roll.
Members Brown.
Here.
Narum.
Here.
Excuse me, Chair Narum. Penton.
Here.
Here.
Testa.
Here.
And the record will reflect that Chair Thorne is absent.
Okay, thank you. At this time, any person may address the board on items listed on the printed agenda. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Madam Clerk, have there been any requests submitted to speak on the item on the special meeting agenda?
We have no speakers for the agenda.
Okay, thank you. So items listed on the consent calendar are considered routine in nature, and they can be enacted by one motion. If discussion is required, that item will be removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. Have there been any items have there been any requests submitted to speak on the consent calendar, Madam Clerk?
We have no requests to speak.
Great, okay. Since we're in a virtual setting, I'm going to ask my colleagues individually if they have any questions. Board Member Brown?
No.
Board Member Penton?
No.
Board Member Testa?
No questions.
And I don't have any questions. So at this point, I'll now ask for discussion, or certainly willing to entertain a motion from my colleagues.
I'll make a motion that we accept adopt the resolutions approving the engineer's reports for the geological hazard abatement districts for Oak Tree Farm, Moeller Ranch, Laurel Creek Estates, the Preserve, Oak Hill Estates, and Cold Branch Estates, and Lemoyne Ranch Estates, declaring the board's intention to assess properties for the cost to maintain and operate the districts and setting June 16, 2020 as a public hearing date.
Is there
I'll
a
second that.
Is that Council Member Testa?
Yes.
Seconding? Okay, thank you. All right, will the clerk now call the roll, please? Call for a roll call vote.
Board Member Brown.
Yes.
Penton.
Yes.
Testa.
Yes.
Vice Chair Narum.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously with Chair Thorne absent.
Okay, thank you. And so there being no further business, the Jihad meeting is now adjourned. Okay, I will now call the regular meeting of the City Council to order and ask that you stand with me and in the Pledge of Allegiance. And I see we have a flag on the screen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty and justice for all.
Councilmember Testa, do you have remarks tonight for us?
I do have remarks tonight. Here we go. Good evening, and welcome to tonight's Pleasanton City Council meeting. Before we get started, I'd like to share some upcoming events and activities that may be of interest to our residents. Starting tomorrow morning, you will see a banner and ribbons throughout the downtown to acknowledge our graduating seniors. On behalf of the City Council, we would like to congratulate the class of 2020 at Amador Valley and Foothill and Village High School. We are Pleasanton proud. Just another reminder, the COVID testing site at the fairgrounds has expanded the testing eligibility to include asymptomatic residents aged 10 years and above. Testing is crucial to continue to flatten the spread of the virus, and we want to encourage everyone to get tested. Testing is available Monday through Friday from 9 to 1. No appointments are necessary. The month of May marks Recognition Week for Public Service, May 3rd through May 9th, and Public Works Week, May 17th to 23rd, to celebrate and recognize the hardworking individuals who serve our community through the city, county, state, and federal government. Thank you for your service, especially during these most challenging times. In case you missed it, the Alameda County Public Health Department announced yesterday to begin early phase 2 of reopening, yay, which allow retail establishments to offer storefront pickup and the manufacturing, warehousing, and logistical operations that support retail to resume, all following the county's safety guidelines. Back to you.
Great, thank you. Could the city clerk please conduct the roll call?
Councilmembers Brown,
here.
Henton,
Here.
Testa,
Here.
Vice Mayor Narum,
Here.
and the record will reflect Mayor Thorne absent.
Okay, thank you. And then could the city attorney please report out from the closed session that we had earlier this evening?
Yes, there's no reportable action from closed session. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any agenda amendments, staff?
There's none from staff.
Thank you. How about from my fellow council members?
Yes, I have a couple. I'd like to continue item number 1, and I would also like to continue item number 7.
Okay.
And I would like to continue item number 4 to June 16, with bringing, allowing staff to bring a policy discussion for this item and the TRL and counseling on this June 2nd meeting.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the items listed on the consent calendar are considered routine in nature, and they can be enacted by one motion. We've tabled a couple and actually tabled 3. So we do have some speakers who've indicated that they would like to speak on some of these items. I asked the city attorney, do we go ahead and let have the speakers speak on the item 4 and item 7, given that they've been continued?
Legally, since they're on the agenda, they have the right to speak on them, but they are encouraged to hold their comments, even though if they want to speak, they can, but they are going to be coming back, as was pointed out, on the 2nd and the 16th. So they are encouraged to hold their comments until that time. And then the item 7 will be coming back on June the 2nd.
Okay. So to have the speakers speak, do we need to take this off consent, or can we have listen or give the people the opportunity to speak before we vote?
I think anybody that wants to speak on any consent calendar item, I think now would be the time.
Okay, perfect. All right, so is the clerk managing the speakers in the room, or I'm not clear who's managing that? Is
Yes,
it
Vice
Alan?
Mayor. Naram, we will call the names and then Alan will let them into the room. We'll start with item number 4.
Okay, that'd be great.
The
And
first,
we'll call
the first speaker is Annie Teagan.
Okay, welcome, Tammy. If you want to speak, go ahead.
Great, thank you so much. My
Oh, I'm
name's
sorry, Annie. I thought she said Tammy.
my name's Annie Tagan. I'm with Tobacco Free Kids, and I'm just really thrilled that you're considering this. We've worked with kids all over the state of California, and there are now over 50 ordinances that are really strong, and completely ending the sale of flavored tobacco without exemption. So we just encourage that, and we understand. I did see an article today about a potential lawsuit, and we just want you to know that at Tobacco Free Kids, we're a nationwide nonprofit organization, and we've actually seen this lawsuits threatened many times by the tobacco industry, and so far on this issue, we've always come out ahead. So we just wanted to give you sort of rest assurance that we think that this is just another big tobacco tactic, kind of trying to scare the city council. So we hope that you stay strong and enact a strong ordinance for kids. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Next speaker.
Devansh Pandey.
Welcome.
Hi, if you'd prefer I speak at the June 2nd or 16 meeting, that's fine too, if that's when this is going to be enacted or
Yes,
spoken about.
there'll be discussion
Okay,
at that. So if you don't mind, that'd be great.
yep, okay.
Okay, we'll
That's
see
fine
you in a
then.
couple of weeks.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next speaker.
Amaya Wooding.
Welcome, Amaya.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is still Amaya Wooding, hasn't changed from 2 weeks ago, and I'm still co-chair of Proudly Against Tobacco, which is still a Bay Area-wide LGBTQ tobacco control coalition. The message we're all here to send is that nicotine addiction is serious, and we don't want kids getting hooked. We all know that flavored tobacco is the gateway product, and the tobacco industry has said so themselves. Quote, "Cherry Skull is for someone who likes the taste of candy, if you know what I'm saying." Actual quote, you can hear the wink. Putting a 21 and over sign over the door doesn't make the appeal of flavored tobacco go away. Crafting an exemption to privilege particular stores doesn't make the appeal go away. With the item before you tonight, Pleasanton may join a growing group of cities and counties in the region that ban the sale of flavored tobacco without exemption. This is the strongest practice you'll find in ordinances passed over the past 2 years. Just in the East Bay, Richmond, Oakland, Berkeley, Albany, Alameda, Fremont, Alameda County, Contra Costa County, you get the idea. No ifs, ands, or buts. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Rosalind Moya.
Welcome, Rosalind.
Hi, I'll just make this quick. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to thank the City Council for considering this, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about the public opinion poll surveys that volunteers in Pleasanton that we were collected in January 2020. It was a great partnership with Pleasanton's PTA, with Amador Valley High School students, Las Positas College students, and other volunteers. And we collected 636 public opinion polls at the Pleasanton's Farmers Market, at the Women's March, and multiple events at Amador Valley High School. It was also distributed at the Pleasanton Unified School District staff and PTA. It was really a great effort by the volunteers in collecting 636 surveys in 3 weeks in the middle of winter, right after winter break, Christmas break. And so they really did a wonderful job. And most of the respondents came from zip codes 94566 and 94588. So it's a really good representative of Pleasanton's residents. And what they found was that 95% agree or strongly agree that flavors appeal to youth, that 87% support a ban on the sale of flavored tobacco products, 80% support the ban and the sale of vapes and electronic smoking devices, and that 73% and 80% support a minimum price and package. And so I just want to, appreciate your effort in this and in listening to the community, and know that the community is in support of what you're doing. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Rosalind. Next speaker, please.
Joseph Haddad.
Welcome, Joseph.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, hi. My name is Joseph Haddad. I am the owner of the Cigar Parlor in Pleasanton and the Tobacco Hut in Pleasanton. I've been in town for a long time, for over 17 years now. I applied with the city of Pleasanton to open my business legally. And I was just looking at my application, city application, and it shows that I did itemize what I'm going to be selling: vape, cigars, pipe tobacco, flavored electronic cigarette, and I just got approved. So it's legally approved by the city of Pleasanton. What the city is doing is going to run me out of business. Basically, I'm going to go out of business. It's not enough that taking vape and flavored out. You're targeting the vape because kids are using it. I don't know why the city is targeting premium cigar to put up premium cigar price, minimum price, and pipe tobacco. That's not for kids. The city knows that. Everybody knows that. And you're targeting the stuff that's sold for kids, not for adults. And you're taking away the vape and you put in minimum price. And last meeting, it was mentioned that the city is very generous with us, that they don't want to have grandfather shops that has been in a business that if I sell my business, the new owner cannot buy, sell tobacco. My shops is 100% tobacco stores. I don't sell grocery. I don't sell chips, candy. I don't sell what other grocery stores or liquor store sells. I sell 100% tobacco product. If I decide to sell my businesses, the new owner is not going to buy it because it's not allowed. They're not allowed to sell tobacco. It just doesn't make sense to me. So basically, it's like the city telling me, you're out, completely out. And like I mentioned in the beginning, I applied with the city legally, and I did itemize the product that I sell in my store. I hope the city will feel a little mercy for me. It's just not right what's happening for me. Taking all my businesses, putting minimum prices on my cigars. I sell premium cigar, handmade cigar for $5. I can't sell it anymore. I have to sell it for $8. Pipe tobacco, like I mentioned last time, it's not for kids. We all know that this product is used by adults. The youngest I've seen is 50-year-old. Please, I'm begging you. I want to save my business. This is my livelihood. This is what I worked for 20 years to be where I'm at right now. And it's going to be destroyed very soon. Thank you so much for listening.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker, please.
Blythe Young.
Good evening, Council. My name is Blythe Young, and I'm the Community Advocacy Director for the American Heart Association here in the Bay Area. I want to thank you for your pursuit of a flavored tobacco policy and a tobacco retail license. I look forward to seeing the draft you come back with in June. I would urge you to remove the youth penalty clause that is currently present. It's not a best practice used today. It's not effective in enforcing tobacco use in youth. We applaud you on your efforts in moving forward, and we offer our technical assistance in your drafting. And we hope that you will follow the lead of Palo Alto and Oakland and Marin County and Alameda County in passing a very strong policy with no exemptions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Jennifer Duncan.
Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you, City Council members. I just really want to stress the fact that I'm a parent here in Pleasanton. My daughter's now entering Amador High as a freshman this coming year. And, you know, tobacco is a very strong, well-funded organization. It's $48 billion. And they're very smart about how they market, what they do. And I promise you, if we leave any loopholes or exemptions available, they're going to take advantage of those things and market on them. They know there's now a market for flavors. They are aware. They are fully aware. So what they're going to do is they're going to use the premier tobacco market to target youth next. I promise you they will. They're probably already thinking in terms of that. What we're doing to help save businesses is actually going to be a loophole for them to come in and attract youth. It's just as easy for them to have one cigar that's also flavored like unicorn poop or candy or all the other things that they flavor other things now, like vaping materials. It's very simple for them to shift their marketing techniques in order to accommodate any kind of bans or anything like that. We have to be forward thinking. A lot of the restrictions that have been put in place prior to now, that's what happened. We weren't forward thinking enough, and they found ways to exploit those holes. So we can't allow that to happen. And you know, my heart goes out to that gentleman that was speaking earlier, but we're not talking about all tobacco products here. We're talking about flavors. We know for a fact, the data shows that the youth are attracted to flavors, and no business thus far has gone out of business in any of the areas that have banned flavors. And there's a reason, because business owners, they acclimate to local conditions. That's what owning a business is about. You sell what people buy. And if we don't want to make it an appealing place for people to come and buy flavored tobacco, and that's what this is about. And I'm sorry, but you know, our youth is more important than an adult's convenience. And that's just the way it is. Thank you so much, guys. I'm sorry, I know you have a continuance, but I just had to say that because I know that that's a real issue for you. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Sophia Thompson.
Welcome, Sophia.
I'm going to have to promote Sophia as a panelist. She has an older version of Zoom, so it doesn't allow me to enable her to come out of the meeting room. So.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sophia.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Hello, City Council members. My name is Sophia Thompson, and I go to Harvest Park Middle School. My main concern is to ban all flavored tobacco, including menthol with absolutely no exemptions. Menthol was arguably the first popular flavor and is derived from the mint leaf, but people call it menthol. Menthol is a really serious public threat because many studies have shown that it is easier to inhale and harder to quit. The menthol flavor in cigarettes masks the harsh taste of tobacco and makes the smoke feel much more smooth and easier to inhale. So this makes it easier for youth to start smoking. Menthol also allows smokers to inhale more deeply, which causes harmful particles to settle deeper inside the lungs. The flavors of menthol can make cigarettes much more addicting. Menthol smokers are also less likely to successfully quit smoking than other smokers because menthol smokers show greater signs of nicotine dependence. 54% of youth from ages of 12 to 17 years old who smoke use menthol cigarettes. So I beg you guys, please protect my friends and from this toxic substance and make the community a better place to live in. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Jen Grand Lejano.
Okay, welcome, Jen.
Hi, thank you. My name is Jen Grandlajano, I'm from the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network. I'm the Government Relations Director for Northern California. Since this is continued, I will make my comments brief, but start off by thanking you for your recent amendments to strengthen the ordinance. And we look forward to seeing the tobacco retailer license introduced as a separate ordinance on June 2nd, especially since the policies being adopted won't go far without an enforcement mechanism. We also encourage you not to consider any future exemption for premium tobacco, as this always goes sideways, as I've said before, so I won't go into it again. And would ask also, since this is being continued, that you remove any language that would penalize youth possession, use, purchase, or distribution. If this isn't being used, again, why have it? So thank you so much, and we look forward to this continuing in June.
Great, thank you. Next speaker, please.
Liz Williams.
Welcome, Liz. Go ahead, Liz. Alan, is there somebody there?
There was, but she dropped off. Let me try again.
Can you hear me?
There you are. Yes.
Okay, excellent.
Welcome. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you. Good evening, council members. I'm Liz Williams with Americans for Non-Smokers' Rights. I want to thank you for your support for this retail tobacco proposal. We are very glad that you're looking to set a minimum price for tobacco products and that you're planning to come back to consider that option of adding a tobacco retailer licensing requirement. I'm happy to speak further in June, but I just want to share that ending the sale of all flavored tobacco products at all retailers without exemptions is the current best practice, and these policies have been successfully adopted by dozens of cities and counties throughout the state. So Pleasanton would be in very good company if you choose to take these actions, and I look forward to hearing you discuss this issue further in June. So thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hamed.
Welcome, Hamed.
I actually don't see Hamad in the waiting room.
Okay.
Unless he's on as Tri-Valley Mammy.
No. No. Next speaker, please. If he comes back, we can catch him at the end.
Craig Wingate.
Welcome, Craig.
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Good evening. My name is Craig Austin Wingate. I'm speaking on behalf of the Alameda County Tobacco Control Coalition. I echo my colleagues who are in favor of this ordinance. I will keep my comments brief. I just want to thank you for continuing to focus on this ordinance and this issue. And thank you for putting the lives of youth and young adults before tobacco profits. And I encourage you to continue on your journey and moving this ordinance forward, and not to be intimidated by big tobacco's tactics, which includes lawsuits and requests for carve-outs and other things that they will try to do to derail any effort to that leads to people not using their products. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you. Are there any more speakers on item 4?
One more. Janelle,
One more. Okay.
Janelle Gladden.
Okay, welcome, Janelle. Go ahead.
I don't see Janelle online.
Okay, she may have dropped off with the continuance. All right, so that's it then for speakers on item number 4.
Yes.
Thank you. So thank you to all the speakers. This has been continued to June 16th meeting. At our next meeting on June 2nd, we will be looking at the TRL and possibly a couple other questions around the ordinance. So we invite you to tune in for both of those items or both of those discussions. And then let's move on to item 7. I believe you said you had one speaker.
Yes, John Bauer.
Okay. Welcome, John. Is he there?
He is.
Yeah, hello.
Oh,
Can
there
hear
you
me
are.
now?
Great. Welcome,
Yep,
John.
okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Vice Mayor Narum, and good evening to everybody. So I guess my first question is, I sent an email yesterday to the City Council, and normally I receive a confirmation that my email has been received and is being distributed to the City Council. Was that email received and distributed?
I received an email from you this afternoon, and I can't.
Okay, yeah. So same email. I sent the same email yesterday.
Okay.
But I didn't receive the response back, confirming that it was received. So I resent it again this afternoon.
Okay.
Okay, so I thank you for confirming that. And with that, I will postpone my comments until this comes back in June.
Great. All right. Thank you, John. So that's the end of the speakers, I believe, for the consent agenda.
We actually have one. Oh, I'm sorry. Correct.
That's it, correct?
Yeah, we have one for 8, but.
Right. Okay. So with that, I will I'll go through and ask if there's any questions real quick, and then look for a motion for the consent calendar. Councilwoman Brown?
No questions. No questions.
Okay. Councilmember Penton?
No questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Testa?
No questions.
Thank you. And I don't have any questions. So I will entertain a motion for the consent calendar.
I'd like to make a motion with the continuance of item 1 and item 7 by Councilmember Testa and the continuance of item 4 by Councilmember Penton. So I'd like to make a motion for the other remaining items for approval.
Great. Is there a second?
Second.
Perfect. Thank you for raising your hand. Would the clerk please call the roll call for a vote?
Councilmember Testa?
Yes.
Councilmember Penton?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Narum?
Yes.
And the record will reflect Mayor Thorne absent. The
Great, thank
motion
you.
passes unanimously.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No problem.
Okay, so we'll move on to the meeting open to the public. And we have a presentation of a proclamation declaring May as the Mental Health Awareness Month. And I believe Councilmember Testa, you are here or prepared to present it. So if you'd like to go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you.
That'd be great.
I do have a proclamation recognizing May as Mental Health Awareness Month. After I read the proclamation, we have Marcia McInnes, founder and second vice president of NAMI Tri-Valley, who will share a few words. I'd like to share a couple thoughts as well before I start the proclamation. With the COVID-19 pandemic, there has been increased health stress, social isolation, financial distress, fears about health, and an uncertain future are worrisome symptoms for people with mental health conditions and causing new mental health challenges for many others. Navigating life with mental illness is difficult. Finding resources and people who care is critical for wellness. Whereas mental health is part of overall health, where 1 in 5 adults experiences a mental health problem in any given year, and whereas approximately 1/2 of a chronic mental illness begins at the age of 14 and 3/4 by the age of 24, and whereas Suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States and the second leading cause among young adults. And whereas long delays often occur between the time symptoms first appear and when individuals get help, and where 90% of people who die by suicide had shown symptoms of a mental health condition, and whereas early identification and treatment can make a difference in successful management of mental illness and recovery, as well as increased awareness among our communities can make a difference in helping end the silence and stigma surrounding mental health and discourage people from getting help. Now, therefore it is resolved, the City of Pleasanton proclaims the month of May 2020 as Mental Health Awareness Month to shine a light on mental illness and fight stigma, provide support, educate the public, and advocate for care. I also wanted to take the opportunity to share some of our other local organizations like NAMI of the Tri-Valley, Hiverly, Access Community Health, Alameda County Behavioral Health Department, or by calling local 211 through the county for mental health assistance, not just relating to this pandemic, but for all mental health assistance. Now I'd like to introduce Marcia. Marcia, are you there?
Am I unmuted?
Yes, we hear you, Marcia. Go ahead.
Very good. Yes, thank you, Julie. And I want to take a second to thank the City of Pleasanton for being so generous and open to this proclamation. It is so important just for the general community to know this. And I just wanted to say a few words around that. So each year, millions of Americans face the reality of living with a mental illness. And during May, NAMI Tri-Valley joins the national movement to raise awareness around mental health. Each year, we do fight stigma. We provide support, education, and advocate for policies that support people with mental illness and their families. So during Mental Health Awareness Month, the NAMI Tri-Valley joins the mental health community to reaffirm our commitment to building our understanding of mental illness, increasing access to treatment, and ensuring those who are struggling to know that they are not alone. We all know these are tough times and our mental health matters. So if you or a loved one is struggling, you are not alone. Visit NAMI-TriValley.org to learn more about the free programs and services we provide, and we are here for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcia. And again, NAMI Tri-Valley provides all services at no charge. So there should be no barrier to getting help.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, we're going to move on to the public comments regarding items that are not on tonight's agenda. And any person may address the City Council on any subject pertaining to city business, which does not relate to an item listed on the printed agenda. No action may be considered or taken on matters not listed on the agenda. And then each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. And Madam Clerk, do we have any requests to speak on this item or at this time?
Yes, we have one speaker.
Okay.
Stephen Bull.
Great. Welcome, Stephen. Go ahead.
Thank you, Councilmember Nara. My name is Stephen Bull, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Pleasanton Girls Softball League, which is an all-volunteer, nonprofit organization that has served the Pleasanton, Dublin, and Sunol area for more than 30 years and is one of the largest softball leagues in Alameda County, offering girls from ages 5 to 18 the opportunity to play. I'm here to start a dialogue with city leadership to begin planning in preparation for softball activities based upon our return to play plan and protocols, which were submitted earlier this afternoon to the council and also earlier this week to the city staff members, Leo Lopez and Heidi Murphy. We've reviewed our plan with Lisa Erickson from the schools, and who's a schools and child care liaison at Alameda County Public Health Department, and received verbal approval to proceed as a youth camp for children of essential and additional business workers as described in section 15 of the May 18th shelter in place order. We understand that there will be continuing restrictions for the foreseeable future, but we believe that softball as an outdoor non-contact team sport is well suited for social distancing and limited gatherings. We're committed to ensuring the safety of our players and coaches. As outlined in our plan, PGSL proposes a gradual and phased return to local play. Based upon the youth camp description of the county order, we propose to start with small groups of 12 players or less. And in the first phase, only practices would take place, with coaches ensuring social distance and other protective measures. Games would not be permitted until we transition to stage 3 and are approved by the Alameda County Health Department. As a precedence, Contra Costa County has already given written permission for the Lafayette Little League to return to practice as of yesterday. Similarly, the San Ramon Valley Girls Athletic League has received permission from the county and city of San Ramon to start practices. We would like to begin working with you to secure permission to use the girls softball fields at the Ken Mercer Sports Park in Upper Burnell Park for our approved activities. We are willing to volunteer our assistance for making the fields available to us and preparing our own fields. We would like to begin planning and preparation with the city now in order to have the fields ready as the state, county, and city move into later stages of the reopening. Thank you very much for your consideration, and thank you for all of the work that you're doing during this unprecedented time. And I'm available for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would the city manager like to comment briefly?
Thank you. We are working with all of our civic sports leagues in our community to enable them to restart when the county health order allows that to occur. We did receive Mr. Bull's proposal. We will be sharing that with the decision makers at the county health department to determine how that can be best incorporated into the restrictions that exist today. He refers to the camp definition. We have an interest in restarting our camps as well here at the city for the benefit of first responder parents and other essential workers. If the proposal fits within the parameters of that definition, we will certainly work with him and his organization and the others. We've been approached by other organizations to figure out a way to offer our sports fields again for practices and limited activity.
Thank you very much.
More to follow.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for speaking, Mr. Bull.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Was that the only speaker at meeting open to the public?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we'll close the public hearing and we'll move on to the public hearings on our agenda. The first one is item 10A, approve the allocations for housing and human services grants and the community grant program funds for the 2020 grant funding cycle. And I'm assuming there's a staff report?
Excuse me, I need to make a disclosure before the discussion begins.
Okay.
I have a relationship with several of the grants that will be, that are recommended to receive funding on this item, and I wanted to disclose that I am on the board of Tri-Valley NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness. I have a past relationship on the board of REACH, and I am currently a volunteer delivery person for Meals on Wheels. I have an opinion from the FPPC saying as a non-compensated officer of nonprofits, I have no conflict of interest, and it is advised that I am allowed to participate in discussion and voting on all items on this agenda.
Okay, thank you for sharing and making that known publicly. And so with that, Jay, is it?
I'm going to introduce the topic. Good evening, Vice Mayor and City Council. As the Vice Mayor noted, this item is a public hearing that covers 3 different reports. They're all related, and some of them will look familiar to you. We are going to take them one at a time, although we've set it up on one PowerPoint. This process involves a lot of different departments and several of your commissions. And so there'll be a number of staff members presenting the information. As the Vice Mayor indicated, the first hearing is on the annual Housing and Human Services grants and community grants. And that'll be a shared presentation between Jay Ingram, our Human Services Manager, and Steve Hernandez, our Housing Program Manager. The second portion, the consolidated plan, will be presented by Steve Hernandez. This is an administrative report that is required to receive our CDBG funding. We don't have a lot of control over the content and the format. It's a standard form that we need to provide them. And finally, the third section of this public hearing is on the community development block grant that was specially granted to cities and counties to address the COVID crisis. Accepting this money does require that we make an amendment to this year's consolidated plan. Item number 2, or B, addresses the consolidated plan for the next 5 years, but this new money in this current crisis requires an amendment to our existing annual plan. And that will be presented by Becky Hopkins, Assistant to the City Manager. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jay Ingram to start the grant discussion.
Thank you.
Good evening
again. Welcome, Jay.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Good evening, Vice Mayor and council members again. As you just heard, there are 2 grant programs the city provides, the Housing and Human Services grants and the community grants. In December of 2019, 2 regional pre-application workshops were held to provide information about the programs and for staff to be available to answer any questions from prospective applicants. Applications were accepted via the Zoom grant software platform from December 20th, 2019 through January 27th, 2020. Grant applications are reviewed by city staff and various commissions, which provide funding recommendations to you, the City Council. I would like to begin with the Housing and Human Services Grant Program. This year, the Human Services Commission reviewed 23 grant applications representing 14 agencies. As shown on Table 3 in the agenda report, pages 4 through 7, the Commission made recommendations. The Commission made recommendations to fund 12 agencies through 12 different projects. I wanted to highlight for the Council a project that the Commission is very excited about. As you might remember, as part of the Human Services Needs Assessment Strategic Plan, a strategic action was to use a portion of their annual grant allocations to fund a multi-year contract with core safety net service providers. The Commission determined that healthcare and behavioral health was the area of need that requires strategic focus, and they set aside $35,000 a year over potentially a 5-year period for this purpose. A request for qualifications was conducted, and Access Community Health was recommended. The program that Access will provide addresses a gap that has been identified in meeting the need of students in middle and high school. The program will offer ongoing group counseling programs that will last 8 weeks, have 8-week sessions, and the one-on-one counseling will be provided as appropriate. The Human Services Commission reviewed grants prior to the COVID-19 pandemic and the state of emergency declared by the city. Since that time, a waiver from HUD was received that allows the city to exceed the statutory 15% cap on CDBG public services dollars and allows the use of the CDBG capital funds towards public service grants or projects. This allowed staff to review all of the applicants to determine who would meet the CDBG funding criteria. After apportioning those funds, there was a funding gap of $67,367, which staff is recommending that City Council make an additional appropriation from the general fund to cover. The requested amendment to the Human Services Commission recommendation is to fully fund the applicants they have identified. These agencies provide core services to our most vulnerable residents in a variety of areas, such as disability services and access, food and nutrition, healthcare and behavioral health care, senior services, workforce development, youth services, and serving those experiencing homelessness. It is anticipated that the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on Pleasanton residents who are newly experiencing unemployment, food insecurities, loss of medical insurance coverage, experiencing anxiety, loss and grief, all of these will need to be poised to do more to serve the increased need in our community. Thus, staff is recommending fully funding the grant requests. This slide shows a little bit of additional detail. This chart is to demonstrate what areas the grant funding will be addressing. The top two areas are homelessness and food. Homelessness includes not only meeting the needs of those currently homeless, but also includes prevention services to keep someone from becoming homeless. Food is another large category, which includes the food pantry, hot meals for residents, weekend lunch program for schools, for school children, congregate meal program, and Meals on Wheels programs for seniors. Also included is medical and health, which includes dental, medical, and behavioral health. Financial and legal represents legal assistance for seniors, those experiencing child abuse and domestic violence, and tax preparation assistance for low-income residents. Disabled special needs represents a program offered by Sunflower Hill that is an education, job training, horticulture program for adults with developmental disabilities. Family services includes grief counseling, community closet, and the early literacy diaper pantry program. Employment includes providing free employment and training services for Pleasanton residents. And finally, the capital projects include a smartboard signage for the Sunflower Hill project in Irby Ranch, office build out for the city serve of the Tri-Valley, and the annual payment of the Section 108 loan for the Access Community Health Clinic. Are there any questions or comments regarding the Human Services grant before we move on?
Let me just go through real quick and see if anybody has questions. Councilmember Brown? Questions?
Yeah, I muted you so when I'm moving my papers, I wouldn't. No, I do not have questions. I'm so incredibly impressed.
Okay, Councilmember Penton, questions?
Yeah, I don't have any questions. The report is wonderful, and it's the first time we've ever been able to fully meet all of the grant requests.
Okay, so we're just doing questions.
Well, but Jay asked for questions and comments, and so I was just saying that I think it's great we've been able to meet all of the grant requests. So no.
We're just doing questions because we do have speakers in the public hearing. Councilmember Testa, questions?
No, I was able to get my questions answered prior to the meeting, and I'm very comfortable with what we have before us.
Right. So do you want to continue on, Jay?
Sure. So, as Brian mentioned at the beginning, there's a number of recommendations that will be before you tonight. Here's the first recommendation, as outlined in the agenda report. For the Human Services grants, it is recommended to fully fund the applicants identified by the Human Services Commission at the levels listed. Would the council like to consider voting on this recommendation prior to moving forward?
I do have some speaker cards, I believe, or some people that indicated that they'd like to speak on item 10A. So you still have more presentation on the housing and the civic arts. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Why don't we go through those and then we'll come back and we need to hear from the public and any discussion.
Okay,
so go ahead,
what I will
please.
do, I will rotate out of the seat and turn it over to our housing manager, Steve Hernandez.
Okay.
Okay. Good evening, Vice Mayor and City Council. Good evening, Vice Mayor and City Council. My name is Steve Hernandez, and I'm the Housing Manager for the City of Pleasanton. I will now present the Housing Services grants. This year, the Housing Commission received 7 grant applicants. As shown on Table 4 in the agenda report on page 9, the Commission made recommendations to fully fund 6 of the 7 applicants at a total of $460,153, which is proposed to be funded with $264,196,000 from the Lower Income Housing Fund and $195,957 from the Federal Home Fund. Here's a chart to demonstrate what areas the grant funding will be addressing. The 2 top areas are the rapid rehousing and housing rehab. Rapid rehousing, which is administered by Abode Services, provides temporary housing assistance and housing counseling support for households experiencing homelessness and to prevent households from becoming homeless. The Housing Rehabilitation Program represents 2 programs. Habitat for Humanity administers the Housing Rehabilitation Program, which assists income-eligible Pleasanton homeowners to make health and safety repairs to their homes. The other program is provided by Tri-Valley Reach to maintain 7 single-family homes that provide affordable housing for 15 extremely low-income adults with developmental disabilities. Under the homeless category, this is for street outreach and prevention services provided by City Serve of the Tri-Valley in coordination with city staff. Housing counseling is provided by Echo Housing. The housing counseling services to residents include federally mandated fair housing education and investigation, tenant landlord counseling and mediation, rental assistance, home seeking, and shared housing. Finally, we have services provided by CRIL to ensure independent living and provides housing services for residents with physical and developmental disabilities. That ends my presentation on the housing grants. Are there any questions regarding the housing services grants?
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Testa, any questions on the housing grants?
I do. You know, Steve, if you're not prepared to answer this, I'll apologize and move on. But my 11 years on the Human Service Commission, Habitat for Humanity was not servicing Pleasanton. So I'm intrigued. Can you give me an example of what the projects are that Habitat for Humanity has been doing in Pleasanton?
Sure. So Habitat for Humanity was selected as the administrator for the city's housing rehabilitation program. And so the housing rehabilitation program makes health and safety repairs to homeowners. So they do, for example, accessibility repairs, shower handlebars, ramps, or whatnot. They also do safety repairs such as roof repairs. So we used to have a different administrator, but Habitat for Humanity has been our administrator since 2016. I apologize.
I was going to say, I was in 2006. I was there, and it was a different agency. Okay, well then I understand what they're doing because I was familiar with that program before. So obviously, they're not building houses in Pleasanton. They're doing our low-income rehab projects.
Correct.
Yes. Okay. So projects for our seniors, things like that. Really important stuff. Okay, thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Putton, any questions?
Just clarify on the Habitat for Humanity, it notes that that the funding is $128,000, but that's with a $93,000 carryover. Is it expected that they'll use the 128 this year if they didn't use 93 last year?
Yes.
Okay, but it looks like we're funding, 35,000, but there was a 93,000 carryover. Was that because they didn't do some projects, or we're just ramping them up? It just seems like a big carryover with not that much more funding this year. So that's why I'm questioning it.
The main reason is really the number of projects that they have to get going. For example, a homeowner who's a senior who needs help might not complete the application, or they decide to change their mind. Obviously, Habitat staff is reaching out to these homeowners, but it ultimately comes down to the homeowners to decide to move forward with the project.
Okay, so does the homeowner also pay for the repairs and things, or is this, they have to qualify?
There's an income eligibility requirement for the program.
All right, thank you.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Brown, any questions?
Yes, and thank you for your presentation, Steve. I have a question about Habitat for Humanity. What's the method of outreach to residents and within the city of Pleasanton? So now these health and safety repairs will be available. Do they need to navigate our quite complicated website to find applications, or is the city doing an outreach to residents that may be of interest?
So we've done all of those. Our main outreach is with Senior Support Services, which is right here at the Senior Center. And so when we do home visits, those Senior Support Services staff make referrals and recommendations to Habitat staff. Habitat also does outreach and marketing out here in Pleasanton. It's on our city website. We have flyers here at the City Hall, the main library, and at the Senior Center.
Thank you. However, many people who have physical disabilities are not seniors. Has there been any plans to maybe do an event or open up the library for these things? Because they want to capture those. Let's just say a young man or woman that comes back from the service and needs some bars in their home, or some other physical challenges that aren't senior related.
We can certainly consider some additional outreach in that regard.
Thank you, Brian. And then my last question, because I do think it's valid, not everybody's a senior that needs these things, but many seniors do. Then my last question is regarding CityServe of the Tri-Valley and how the $80,000 would be allocated. Again, going back to outreach for, obviously it's addressing some homelessness, but it's also, it says extremely low income, disabilities, and these are again of all ages. And what's your method for outreach for CityServe the Tri-Valley?
So CityServe works extensively with city staff as well as the police department. And so when we have identified those individuals, they do extensive case management in order to assess their situation and assist them with whatever they need.
So if somebody is maybe homeless in the city of Pleasanton, how could I, as a resident, connect them with City Serve? Is that something that I would call the non-emergency police department?
The recommended suggestion would be to contact Jay, our human services manager. He is sort of our air traffic controller.
Okay, all right. But if Jay is a Monday through Friday kind of guy, so evenings and weekends, again, I'm just trying to figure out, we do have a homeless population within Pleasanton. Many of us, and I know everyone on the council, care deeply about serving those individuals and finding how we can help them on evenings and weekends as well.
Yes, they can contact the police dispatch during off hours.
Non-emergency, all right.
Non-emergency, yeah.
Yeah, no 911 calls are needed unless it's urgent. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, you got my question, Councilmember Brown. So I don't have any questions, and thank you, Steve. And who's doing the Civic Arts and the Youth Commission grants?
I will turn it over to Jay.
Great, thank you.
Sorry about that.
Welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be back. Let's see. All right. So now let's discuss community grant program, specifically the Community Arts Cultural Activities category. This year, the Civic Arts Commission reviewed 13 grant applications representing 8 agencies. As shown on Table 5 in the agenda report, page 11, the Commission made recommendations to fund all applicants at various levels. Another pie chart for you. Here's a chart to demonstrate what areas the grant funding will be addressing. As you can see, 39% of the funding is going towards music programs for children and students. 26% is going towards musical performances by the Pleasanton Community Band and the Livermore Valley Performing Arts Center. 17% of the funding will go towards the Pleasanton Cultural Arts Council for a native art exhibit and marketing and membership support. 9% of the overall funding will go to the Museum on Main for their An Evening With series, and 7% will be used for art therapy for seniors. And finally, 2% will go towards the Ignite event with a focus on inspiring youth creativity. So now let's shift gears a little bit and look at the youth category. This year, the Youth Commission reviewed 7 grants applications representing 6 agencies. As shown on Table 6 in the agenda report, page 12, the Commission made recommendations to fund all applicants at, again, various levels. Here's another chart to demonstrate what areas the grant funding will be addressing. As you can see, 36% of the funding is going towards mental health programs being offered by Hively and Teen Esteem. 31% of the funding will go towards the Healthy Relationships program at the Tri-Valley Haven. Tri-Valley Haven presents in middle schools and high school classrooms. And 19% will go towards the Go Green initiative for youth to create a water conservation campaign to educate other students and the community. 9% will go towards the First Tee golfing program for tee assistants, and finally, 5% will go towards the Valley Children's Museum for a STEAM program. Specific to the community grants, due to the nature of many of the grant application projects, they may not be able to begin their project for some time. It is recommended that the City Council consider extending the time frame allowed to expend grant funding until June 30th of 2022. This will give those organizations an additional 12 months to expend the funds. Any questions regarding the community grants program?
Okay, thank you, Jay. Councilmember Penton, any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Brown?
I do, Jay. If I look at under agency, I realize Livermore Valley Performing Arts and East Bay Jazz would support each other. But I'm puzzled why Livermore Valley Performing Arts Center is doing the Pleasanton Ignite event, which I thought was hosted by PCAC, Pleasanton Cultural Arts Commission. And then the one below, you listed again, Livermore Valley Performing Arts for the Pleasanton Unified School District Cultural Arts Assemblies. So I wonder if that is possible for an error on the agency listings on those, at least 2 or 3 of these items. I'm pretty sure PCAC does Ignite.
Yes, I'll have to dig a little deeper on that and get back to you on that. I don't know for sure.
I think they're just participating in the Ignite.
Okay, well, if you can confirm at least by the second reading, that would be terrific, okay? Especially even the Pleasanton Unified School District Cultural School Assemblies, I'm surprised Livermore is involved in that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. That's all my only questions.
Okay, Councilmember Testa?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. I do have one question, Jay. You know, these grants, as you mentioned, were done pre-COVID. And I'm curious if any of these agencies have come back or the ability to suggest alternatives. I mean, because some of these are school assemblies and gatherings that, you know, who knows when those are going to be allowed to happen. And I'm just wondering if there's been any consideration or interest in, you know, COVID, or as we move forward with it, the new norm, of possibly reallocating that or coming up with different ways to meet some of these objectives, which I think are good.
Yeah, so the main objective was to extend it for another year as well. If those funds don't get extended in the calendar year or expended in the calendar year, they get put back into the program. That's why the Cultural Arts Grant had $54,000, because there was $14,000 that weren't spent from the previous year. So the thinking was that we would be back close to normal enough if we extended it for another 12 months through 2022, that the agencies would be able to expend these funds in that time frame.
Okay, so if an agency here that had one of the grants that I think, you know, maybe was questionable about when that could happen on some of these things that would be large gatherings, is there any avenue for them or vehicle for them to come back and say, gee, instead of doing that, we think we can achieve our objectives, you know, a different way? I don't even know what that would be, sooner than later. I mean, 2 years is a long time, which I appreciate,
absolutely.
you know, being that flexible, but it is a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. There's can be amendments to the program as we go along. As we enter into a contract with the individual agencies, we can amend those, the program plan going forward to accommodate for change in programs.
So that they would have that ability if they came up with a different way to achieve whatever it is they're trying to do in the schools in particular.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So I think, is that the end of the staff report for this, for 10A?
Let's see.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So I believe there are 3 people who wanted to speak on this item.
Yes, the first is Sue Compton.
Okay. Welcome, Sue.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. Welcome.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and City Council. I'm Sue Compton from Access Community Health, and I just wanted to acknowledge and appreciate the dedication that City Council and the Human Services show and continue to show for the youth in our community. On behalf of Access, we would like to thank you for the award of the funds for that behavioral health program for the youth, and especially with gratitude that it's part of the new project that the city is looking more long-term. It's a 5-year grant, and that means a lot. That will allow us to make an impact on the youth for many years to come. And I just wanted to thank you. It's often difficult to run a project on a 1-year basis, and having the luxury of doing a 5-year project is very, very much welcome, and we'd like to thank you again very much for that.
Thank you, Sue, for your work with Access in the community.
Thank you.
Next speaker.
Laura Calvert.
Welcome, Laura. Laura, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, welcome.
Okay. Sorry, I needed to unmute myself and I didn't realize that. Anyway, sorry, this is Laura Calvert with Spectrum Community Services. And truly the HUD waiver and the additional general fund dollars that you are considering before you today are truly
Is it me or did she drop off?
She dropped.
She's still in the room, but her audio, we lost her audio.
Okay, can we move to the next speaker and hopefully she'll regain it?
Yes, Heather Grew.
Okay, welcome, Heather.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes. Welcome. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Heather Grow, and I'm the Executive Director for Open Heart Kitchen. Thank you, Vice Mayor, City Council, and City staff for your time this evening. We are grateful to the Human Services Commission for its continued support of our meal programs through the Housing and Human Services Grant Program. With your ongoing support, we are better able to meet the increased demand for food assistance resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic. In the last 2 months, we have seen more seniors and families with children access our meal programs for the first time. We wouldn't have been able to step up and meet the need in the past 2 months without the assistance of Pleasanton City staff members helping in our production kitchen and at the Pleasanton Senior Center. We cannot thank city staff enough for everything they have done for our clients. We look forward to sending you our reports on our progress. Thank you again for joining with us in the fight to end hunger in the Tri-Valley.
Great, thank you.
Vice Mayor Narum, could I ask Heather some questions?
Sure.
Heather, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Hi. With the additional funding that was given with giving the full request of your grant, but that grant was requested pre-COVID. Do you feel that that is going to bridge the additional burden that you are experiencing? And we've had a lot of community members concerned about Open Heart Kitchen, and somebody had made a post saying that you were having a hard time struggling to stay open. Are you having that difficult of a time, or is the funding going to help address the additional services that you're providing?
We are not struggling to stay open, so I'm not sure where that comment came from. We do have operating reserves. We have not had to tap into them yet. You know, of course, the grant request was pre-COVID, but all of the cities have been very helpful in trying to identify other funding sources. So I know this funding source, they have been very generous in allowing us to get the full grant request. So I think for this funding source, you guys are doing everything you can, and we are working with everyone else to try to find additional funding.
Okay. Well, Heather, that's good to hear because certainly the community and the city supports Open Heart Kitchen and appreciates the work that's being done. I stepped in as a delivery person for Meals on Wheels, so I'm at the senior center most days of the week, and I see that long line of cars lining up to get the really delicious smelling food that is being provided. So really do appreciate the work that you're doing, and certainly want you and the community to know how much we do appreciate and support the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Councilmember Testa.
Okay, thank you, Heather, for your comments. We appreciate them. We appreciate your work in the community. Are there any
Mayor
other
Narum?
I'm sorry?
Spectrum is back online.
Great, okay. Laura, go ahead, please.
Hi, thank you. Hopefully that doesn't happen to you guys. My PC decided to completely reboot and crash. Anyway, sorry. I was just starting to say how wonderful it is that between the HUD waiver and the additional general fund dollars that are proposed in front of you, that you have the possibility of providing the funding for all of the applicants that are before you guys tonight. We know that Spectrum, when we consider the questions on our application each year, we truly look at the need to feed all of the eligible homebound seniors healthy meals and a wellness check every day there in Pleasanton when we come up with a number there. While there's normally not enough funds to make it around to everybody, we make do. We restrict the number of meals each week that some residents get, or we've had to start wait lists in the past. The full funding that's proposed before you guys today will help us absolutely say yes over the next year to all of the seniors who have a need in Pleasanton. And really thank you for the opportunity to be able to do that.
Great, thank you. Thank you for all your help with our seniors.
So I'd appreciate a minute to address Laura as well.
Sure.
Thank you. And Laura, I can't say how much I appreciate the opportunity I've had to work with Meals on Wheels and really on the streets and in having the direct contact with the clients that are served and how much they appreciate. And it's so important, more so than ever right now. So many of them have no contact beyond what the delivery person brings them each day. And so thank you for the work you're doing. And it's good to hear that the additional funding will help meet those extra needs, because I know that you've had, my route has added more seniors, and I think every day the coordinator is struggling to add the additional demand that's been coming in. So thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Okay, with that, are there any other speakers waiting?
Not for this item, no.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to close the public hearing and I will bring it back for comments, discussion, and a motion.
I still had one question for Jay.
Okay.
Follow up on your questions that you had from Jay. When you say that we can, if the applicants need to change mid-contract, they can come to you and adjust. Is this just adjustments based on COVID-19 impacts, or is this normal business? They can just do this during the year they normally have. So I just wanted to clarify that.
It's COVID-19 related. It's not normal business to just change mid-contract. Absolutely not.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks, Vice Mayor Narum.
You're welcome. Do you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to staff's recommendation. Would staff like me to read or just staff's recommendation? It's I'll just do it. One, staff recommends amending the Human Services funding recommendations to fully fund the applications identified for funding by the commission follows, and as listed in Table A, the draft resolution, $292,108 from the general fund, $67,632 from the Community Development Block Grants Administration, $70,091 from the Community Development Block Grants Capital, and $204,491 from Community Development Block Grants Public Services. Two, as recommended by the Housing Commission, allocate $264,196 from the Lower Income Housing Fund and $195,957 in home funds, and as listed in Table A of the draft resolution. Three, as recommended by the Civic Arts and Youth Commissions, allocate $94,903 in CG funds as listed in Table B of the draft resolution, and as recommended by staff, extend the completion date for the grant-funded programs until June 30, 2022, due to COVID-19 impacts on community programs. And four, adopt the attached draft resolution approving the allocation of HHSG and CG funds for fiscal years 2020-21, as listed in Tables A and B of the attachment, and authorize the city manager to enter into individual contracts with each agency receiving HHSG and CG funds, and take all other actions necessary to carry out the HHSG and CG programs for fiscal year 2021.
Thank you. Who'd like to second that?
I would like to second that.
Yeah.
Okay, duly noted. All right, I'll just go through and ask if there's any comments or any other questions, discussion. Councilmember Brown?
Hi, absolutely. Everything okay?
Yeah.
I do have comments, and my comment is that I would like to thank the Human Services Commission, the Housing Commission, Civic Arts and Youth Commission for their long hours of work that they put into selecting their grant recipients. I'd also like to thank Jay Ingram, Steve Hernandez, and Brian Dolan for their contributions, and all the folks that applied. Thank you for your applications. These are very important services that a compassionate community supports, and I know Pleasanton is exactly that. So I'm very happy to support these grants, and thank you for all your hard work to get here.
Okay. Councilmember Pettin?
Yeah, ditto what Councilmember Brown just said. The hard work and the heavy lifting done by these commissions, the Housing Commission, Human Services, Civic Arts, and Youth Commission, especially the Youth Commission, to make these decisions. In normal years, they know that we won't be able to fully fund all of the grant applications. And it's just wonderful this year, for most of these, we've been able to fully fund them. And I think that's just amazing. I also think that it's always important. We talked about Open Heart Kitchen and Spectrum Meals on Wheels. It's always really hard to understand we can't find enough funding to feed people, and it's great we're able to do that this year. But I think to the proclamation we made earlier with Councilmember Testa, addressing the behavior issues and the mental health issues, having this in the same evening, and the grant for access, community health, the 5-year program, and some of the others, and to the organization that spoke tonight, NAMI of Tri-Valley. These are the things that Human Services said we need to do, and we're doing them. So I just think it's in the middle of all this COVID and pandemic and whatnot, this is a really good night for us to be able to do this good work. So congratulations to the staff and to all the grantees.
Thank you. Councilmember Testa?
There's little more left for me to say. Yes, thank you everyone for all the work in putting the grants together. Staff, these are really great reports. Commissions for all the work and the liaison that you do, the site visits, and all the work that you do all year long to support these nonprofits. And to the nonprofits, I am so appreciative of the work that is done. There's always so much to do, and we're so grateful that you can do it for us and support our community, our vulnerable populations, and I'm really proud that we're able to do as much funding as we're able to this year. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just add my thanks to the Human Services Commission, the Civic Arts Commission, Housing Commission, and the Youth Commission. I participated years ago when I was on Park and Rec Commission as the liaison to Housing Commission, and I know it's a lot of time and effort, and you know, it can be agonizing when they're all good causes and not being able to have enough money. And so I certainly really appreciate their work and the work of staff, but I do think that the work of these nonprofits in our community is just where the real thanks needs to go to, because they're the ones day in and day out providing the services to members of our community and that safety net, particularly Open Heart Kitchen, Meals on Wheels. And it's part of what makes us a great community. So I just really pleased to be able to make these allocations. And I also thank Nelson and the staff for, you know, having the wherewithal to find that additional funding to be able to fully fund those human services grants for these nonprofits that really are so important right now during the COVID crisis and pandemic. So I'm really pleased to support this, and I will ask the clerk to do a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Penton?
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Absolutely, yes.
Councilmember Testa?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Narum?
And I'm an absolute yes.
And the record will reflect Mayor Thorne absent. Therefore, the motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you. So we'll move on to item 10B, which is to approve the 5-year consolidated plan for fiscal year 2020 to 2024 and the annual action plan for fiscal 2020-2021 for use of the federal community development block grant funds. And I'm assuming there's a staff report. Brian?
It will be Steve.
Steve, okay, I'm not going to get it right. Not doing too well.
Hello again.
Hello, thank you.
Hello. I will now present the 5-year consolidated plan for fiscal year 2020 through 2024 and the annual action plan for fiscal year 2020-2021. As a condition of receiving our annual allocation of federal CDBG funds, the city is required by HUD to submit these plans. The annual action plan is submitted annually, and in addition, every 5 years, the city must submit a new 5-year consolidated plan. The 5-year consolidated plan includes the goals, policies, and programs from the city's housing element and outlines the priority goals for human services, housing, community development needs, particularly as they relate to the needs of the city's lower income housing population. Meanwhile, the annual action plan proposes the projects and activities to be funded with CDBG funds on an annual basis. And it also provides an annual assessment of the city's progress towards meeting its goals and for housing community development that we had outlined in our consolidated plan. As I mentioned before, we are required to submit these plans, the annual action plan and the consolidated plan, in order to receive the $342,214 in CDBG funds for the upcoming fiscal year 2020-2021. The approval of these plans will not have any direct fiscal impact on the city, as we are receiving federal allocation from the federal government. So the recommendation is simply for the City Council to approve the 5-year consolidated plan for fiscal year 2020-2024 and the annual action plan for fiscal year 2020-2021, and direct staff to submit to HUD by the applicable deadline, which has been moved from May 15 through July 6 due to COVID-19. If you have any questions, please let me know. And would the City Council like to vote on this recommendation prior to moving on to the next item?
Thank you, Steve. Yes, I think we will. We do have a speaker, I believe, waiting as well. But let's start with questions. Councilmember Pettin, any questions?
Yeah, I just have one question, Steve. And as I was reading through the report and the plan, I noticed on page 3 it said that there was a survey, and it surveyed 3,000 plus people in the county, and I know this is county driven, but it also noted that there were 3 community group meetings that were held in Berkeley, Hayward, and Oakland due to the proximity of people who would have these needs and so on and so forth. But I'm just real surprised there was no outreach, no community meeting for a 5-year plan in anywhere in the Tri-Valley. Is that something we're going to try to address down the road for maybe the annual reports or the next 5-year plan?
So we can certainly do that. And just to clarify, the 5-year consolidated plan is different from these community meetings that was held in Berkeley, Oakland, and Hayward. So they're 2 different HUD documents. I apologize for the confusion.
Okay, because I was just reading the summary of citizen participation, and I was just surprised I didn't see anything in the Tri-Valley. I don't necessarily have to be in Pleasanton, but I would look for that in the future.
Will do.
Okay. That's the only question I had.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Testa, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Brown?
I have a question, Steve, and it's just a little bit off. It states in the executive summary, priorities and goals is to make improvements, including ADA accessibility to parks, sidewalks, neighborhood parks, and so forth. And we have as a priority an ADA accessible playground in our plans, last 2-year plans. I wondered if it's funded by things like this 5-year plan.
So such projects can definitely be eligible to be funded with CDBG funds.
Terrific. Okay, good, because it's an important program. All right, thank you. That's all I had.
Okay, thank you. I will open the public hearing, and I believe we have 1 speaker for this item.
We don't have any speakers for this one, just for 10C.
Oh, okay, I wrote it down wrong then. I'm sorry. Okay, then I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the 5-year consolidated plan of 20 through 24 and the annual action plan for fiscal year 20 and 21 for the use of the federal community development block grants, also called CDBG funds.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, yes.
Okay, thank you. Just real quick, any comments, discussion? Councilmember Brown?
Again, I'm very appreciative to the federal government for funding generously the $342,000. We often forget that much of the support money that we get here in the city of Pleasanton does indeed come from the federal government.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Pettin?
Ditto.
Okay, and Councilmember Testa?
No comments. Thank you.
Okay, I don't really have any comments either. Will the clerk please do a roll call vote?
Councilmembers Brown?
Yes.
Testa?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you say Testa or Penton?
I'm sorry, Councilmember Testa?
Yes.
Henson,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Narum.
Yes.
The record will reflect Mayor Thorne absent, therefore the motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on to item 10C to approve the substantial amendments to the fiscal year 2015-2019 consolidated plan, the fiscal year 2019-2020 annual action plan, and the citizens participation plan to access $201,314 in the community development block grant, coronavirus funds, and allocate the CDBG coronavirus funds to respond to COVID-19. And looks like it's Becky.
That's right.
Welcome.
Good evening. Bringing up the rear here. As Brian mentioned at the beginning, that to receive this special funding, we're required to amend the current plan and consolidated plan and the annual action plan for this fiscal year. And that's just so that we can receive the funds and get them into play right away. The federal government passed the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, CARES Act, and this is where the funding was apportioned to CDBG for this COVID response. The city received an allocation of $201,314, and these funds can be expended, backdated to March 27th of this year. No specific spend by date has been issued by HUD, so we are tentatively planning to expend the funds between the next 12 to 24 months, and we'll work with the grantees or the nonprofits with timing if we get an actual spend by date from HUD. We've asked the question, we just haven't gotten a clear answer yet. So the CDBG CV money criteria for the eligible activities included 4 categories and eligible activities for each category as I outlined in your attachment 1 in the agenda report. We reviewed those criteria and staff identified 2 categories and 3 activities that meet the current needs of our community. In category 1, that was for buildings and improvements, including public facilities. An eligible activity under that criteria is to construct a facility for testing, diagnosis, or treatment. In category 2, which is public service, and eligible activities under that criteria are to increase the capacity and availability of targeted health services for infectious disease response within an existing health facility, and deliver Meals on Wheels to quarantine individuals or individuals that needed to maintain social distancing due to medical vulnerabilities. Because of the constrained requirements of the funding, staff identified 2 nonprofits that we felt were able to meet those criteria. We identified Access Community Health and Spectrum Community Services, Meals on Wheels. And they are already providing COVID-19 related services. In attachment 2 to the agenda report, both the CEO from Access, Sue Compton, and the Executive Director from Spectrum Community Services, Laura Calvert, who you've both heard from already tonight, wrote letters expressing how they intended to use the funds. I'll review that with you, give you a quick overview. It's proposed that Access Community Health receive $130,314, and they're planning to spend this over a 24-month period. The services to be provided are 1, provision of clinic-based and telehealth medical services to patients who have symptoms of COVID or other infectious diseases. They're already doing this. This is to expand that ability to provide that service. Number 2, diagnostic treatment and follow-up care for patients who are at risk, diagnosed with COVID or other infectious disease. 3, coordinate related ancillary services to include testing, contact tracing, pharmaceuticals, and home diagnostic equipment as appropriate when the time comes. And then finally, number 4, patient, family, and community education regarding infectious disease prevention. These services will be provided at the 2 Pleasanton clinics and will serve approximately 2,400 Pleasanton residents. An estimated 74% of these patients will have a family income that is less than 100% of the federal poverty level, and 20% will have a family income that is less than 200% of the federal poverty level. So that'll meet a really important need. Next, Spectrum Community Services is planning to spend the $48,000 over a 15-month period. And what they're going to be doing is deliver meals to COVID-19 related clients who are seniors that would not otherwise qualify for their program, and disabled residents under the age of 60 who are unable to prepare or access food. And like I said, Spectrum Community Services has stepped up and is currently meeting this need. This just allows us to expand that ability and ensure that over this protracted crisis, they have what they need to meet the needs of our residents. The $48,000 will serve approximately 15 individuals over that time frame and will equal 4,500 meals. So depending, I mean, it may be more people depending on how many meals a week they need and et cetera, but it will be a great help to those who are suffering because of this crisis. And finally, we're recommending that $25,000 go to the Tri-Valley Regional Testing Center at the Alameda County Fairgrounds, which is underway. And the City Council already committed $100,000 from the general fund for this testing facility, which the city intends to seek FEMA reimbursement for. Typically, FEMA will not pay more than 75% of the cost. And so we are allowed to pay the remaining $25,000 using this funding as it meets the criteria. So that's what staff is recommending. Are there any questions regarding this special COVID-19 funding?
Councilmember Testa, questions?
No questions.
Councilmember Fenton?
No questions.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes, I do have a question. So when we look at funds that are focused on COVID-19 support, I wondered, Becky, are any of these 3 recipients providing PPE equipment, safety equipment, or personal protection equipment to either the people they serve, their staff, or their volunteers?
Yes. I know Access is definitely providing PPE to their staff, and if a patient is coming in and doesn't have a mask, they'll be providing that for them. And then Spectrum has already been giving out masks to their seniors that are receiving meals to ensure that they, when they come and deliver masks, both their drivers, their volunteer drivers or staff are safe, as well as the recipient. And they've been doing that already.
Terrific, because it seems to be the solution to help prevent spreading is containment, right? So anything about gloves or hand sanitizers that you're aware of?
Yes, I know, of course, Access uses their clinicians use gloves as appropriate, as well as Spectrum, especially in delivering the meals, they're gloved, and the meals are properly bagged and handed off to the individual. And then hand sanitizer as well has been given to all the drivers as well as the seniors too.
Good to hear. All right, thank you. That's my question.
Thank you.
You know, I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Narum, could I Becky, I am a little confused. I've provided some masks for some of my delivery recipients, but I don't think that masks have been provided. I've been hoping that that there would be some. So I'd like that to be, could you look into that, please? And I know I provide my own mask and gloves, and they do provide hand sanitizer. I do think that more supplies would be appropriate. So
I've been meeting with, just to let you all know, I've been meeting with our senior service providers. I convened the City of Livermore and Dublin staff, and we've been meeting with them weekly. So that's Open Heart Kitchen. Anybody, any nonprofit in the Tri-Valley that's serving seniors, we meet with them, and they can request PPE needs from us. And I know that it's Laura's goal for Spectrum to make sure that every senior has a mask, as well as the drivers. So if you haven't seen it yet, she's working on it. And I know she was seeking, we provided some PPE, the city received some masks, so we have given that to them. So if you haven't seen it, it is coming.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to open a public hearing, and I believe there's one speaker.
Yes, Laura Calvert.
Great, welcome back, Laura.
Thank you. Councilwoman Brown, I'm sorry, Testa, thank you for obviously all of your service. And as far as the face coverings for the seniors right now are, we've been trying to gather 900, primarily homemade face coverings or donations so that we're not pulling those from first responders. And our first group of seniors who've been getting those are those who are coming to our pick up and go congregate settings in other cities. Our homebound Meals on Wheels folks who typically aren't going out of their home as much are our second phase of when we have enough masks on hand. So if anybody's listening and wants to donate some masks, we'd be face coverings, we would be happy to collect those. I wanted to first of all tell you that Spectrum's Meals on Wheels program is honored to be one of the 3 recipients of this truly emergency response funds. It's kind of a strange time as some federal funds are increasing. We actually have state funds, as you've seen from the projections for the state budget for this next year. We're expecting some of our state funding to go down next year. So this will help us bridge the gap and continue to serve people. In Pleasanton alone, we've had 39 new Pleasanton seniors who have come on to Meals on Wheels since the end of February, and our total meal count has gone up by 55%. Expanding to be able to provide Meals on Wheels to disabled adults under the age of 60 is truly a compassionate addition to the service in Pleasanton. This will help many people who really haven't been focused on during this pandemic so far, but yet they're highly vulnerable to this disease. And us providing a wellness check, providing referral services, and being there for every day will truly save lives in Pleasanton. So thank you for that. And then may I just say, the Pleasanton City staff is a pleasure to work with. They have been truly supportive and there for all of us in the nonprofit community in Pleasanton, and it's not that way in every city throughout the county, because I do work in almost all the cities throughout the county, and I just want you guys to know what wonderful staff you have. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Laura. Are there any other speakers for this item?
That's all the speakers.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to close the public hearing then and seek a motion.
I'd like to make a motion, and that is per staff's recommendation to approve the substantial amendments for the fiscal year of 2015 through 2019, the consolidated plan, the fiscal year 2019 and 2020 action plan, and the citizens participation plan to access $201,314 in community development block grants, coronavirus specific, also called CDBG-CV, coronavirus, and allocate these funds to respond to the dire need that we need here in the Tri-Valley and actually throughout the country. But these are funds specifically for this area. And with that, I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you. Second.
I'll second.
Okay, great. So I'll just go through and see if anybody has any other comments or final questions. Councilmember Testa.
I'm really pleased that we're able to support our nonprofit so generously. And I appreciate all of staff's work. There's no question I've been checking in quite often on what we are doing to support our nonprofits. And I am very proud that our staff has worked very hard to know what the needs are and fill them. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Pettin.
I hate to say ditto again, but comments that Councilmember Tessa just make are exactly what I'm feeling and thinking. And it is great that we can fund these 3 nonprofits with this additional money from our federal sources.
Thank you. And Councilmember Brown.
Absolutely. I'd like to thank Access Community Health, Spectrum Community Services, known as Meals on Wheels, and a Tri-Valley Regional Testing Site for identifying those with symptoms so they can get treatment right away and isolation. I'd also like to thank both Heather and Laura for all they do for our community, as well as all of the staff, but also the volunteers for these 3 organizations. People like Councilmember Testa and staff, city staff from Pleasanton. Wheels staff has also been driving for Meals on Wheels. So it's truly a community that's supporting these 3 organizations. And I'm very proud to be a part of that.
Great, thank you. And I just want to add, I agree with everything that's been said, and I'm particularly happy to hear that we're able to use some of this money to broaden the reach to people under 60 that are disabled or have trouble getting out, and help them as well. So I think it's just a great use of money, and I think we're so fortunate to have so many committed people to these valuable nonprofits. So with that, will the clerk do a roll call vote, please?
Sure. Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Penton?
Yes.
Testa?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Narum?
Yes.
The record will reflect Mayor Thorne absent, therefore the motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. So now we'll move on to matters initiated by council. And I'll start with Councilmember Brown.
No matters to initiate.
Councilmember Penton.
No matters today.
Councilmember Testa.
Yes, I have 3. I would like to ask staff if they could give a little, we've had an awful lot of inquiries in the community regarding our support to PUSD, our school district, for our graduating seniors. An awful lot of requests from parents and community members asking that we have there have been such a plethora of suggestions to recognize our seniors, given this very difficult year that they've lost so much of what we families all value with our graduations. So there's been suggestions of banners on our light posts down Main Street, what's been done in other communities. And we determined that as much as we would have loved to have done that, we have over 1,000 graduates and only 300 light posts. So one of the bigger, and there's been several other suggestions, but one of the biggest requests, and it's been for months. I know this was a discussion that I had with our city manager when the pandemic first started. What are we going to do for these graduates? And we've been talking about a graduation parade or a graduation in cars at the fairgrounds, so many different possibilities. And I think the community might misunderstand where things are right now. And I would really like our staff to just give a little understanding of why things have gone the way they have, why we've been limited and what could be done, and what we do plan to do, because I really want our community to understand how much we do care about our families and our graduates and how much we support working with the school district.
Thank you, Testa. I think that last statement about our support for the district and the families that are going through this, as well as the students, is well said. From the beginning, we've been coordinating actively with the school district and the superintendent about what their needs were. We've been hampered a bit because the health order was really restrictive in our ability to even be creative and responsive to some of the creativity that I know the district wanted to pursue. Things like on-site graduations, vehicle graduations, not only at the campuses, but at the fairgrounds. That restriction was only lifted yesterday, and with extreme conditions on it that make it almost impossible to do effectively, given the amount of seniors that are graduating in the two high schools. So along the way, we took our guidance from the district. We informed them from the beginning that we would be supportive of anything they would like for the city to do, whether it meant staff support or financial support. Where we landed is tomorrow a congratulatory banner to our seniors will be hung over the Pleasanton Arch. We're all meeting. I think many of you will be there to not only celebrate that occasion, but also to tie ribbons on our street poles on Main Street, purple and blue. And I know a lot of the parents to do that as well. So that's right in the heart of our town, and something that we're happy to facilitate and support. As the district landed on their approach of providing a virtual graduation to their seniors for the two high schools, and I believe Village as well, the conversation pivoted to what other show of support could we initiate, and through several discussions, the district had an interest in doing a fireworks display, not only for the graduating seniors, but also for the parents. They are hampered, obviously, with fiscal limitations, more severe than the cities, and asked whether we could support that activity, wholly or partially. And so I know they've done some fundraising, and they've raised some funds. And I, under my signing authority and purchasing authority, said that we would be willing to fund the gap up to $25,000. So so if they raise more, obviously there'd be less that we would contribute. That show was planned for May 29th, following the virtual graduation, and we're working on the details of that. The fireworks display will go 1,000 feet in the sky. Just for reference, the fireworks show for the fairgrounds only goes 400 feet So this will be visible from most parts of Pleasanton. There are some areas like Ruby Hill that won't be able to see it, but most will. And for those who can't, we're coordinating with CTV 30, both PUSD and the city, to have that show televised live for residents that can't physically view it from their homes. So that rounds out our coordination with the school district.
Thank you for that. Vice Mayor Narum, can I go on to my other items?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. The other hot topic that I would really appreciate staff weighing in on is, again, this has been a discussion item for 2 months. So it is something that everyone is supportive of in some form, or most people are supportive of in some form, but there continue to be so many requests, and it would be nice to understand what the city's current, I know it's not, decisions aren't made, things aren't final, there's a lot of coordination that needs to happen, but everyone's asking what's going to happen on Main Street when the restaurants have limited seating in their restaurants, and what can the city do, and what might we be looking at?
Yeah, there's been a lot of interest on the part of the community for doing that, and for some of the merchants and property owners downtown. The Pleasanton Downtown Association has led a discussion with property owners, retailers, and restaurants about their desired objective of closure and what that looks like, days of the week, and hours of operation. In order to collect that feedback from their stakeholders, they ran a survey recently and had a board meeting today. And I believe, it's not official, that they provided us a recommendation today on days and scope. So we'll be looking at that tomorrow, translating it, and putting an operational plan together that addresses their need. You are correct. Restaurants cannot yet receive in-dining or outdoor dining per the health order. We think that'll be available post May 31st sometime, perhaps maybe even on June 1st or that first week. Retailers, of course, this week were allowed curbside pickup. So we look forward to the opportunity. There'll be some coordination involved, especially if the closure doesn't run 7 days a week, not only with setup and patrol and enforcement, but breakdown, et cetera. So I'll have more information for the council and the community here in the next week.
Thank you. I think it's really great for the community to hear that we're supportive of whatever can be done, and so thank you for that. So my last request is we continued item 7 to our next council meeting. That is a large amount that is being requested to be for a
Are we allowed to talk about this if we continued it? I'm confused.
if you'll give me the opportunity, Jerry, please. So what I was asking the council to consider supporting is a companion item to go along with it. It's a significant amount of money, and I would like to ask that we get a staff report on what our current policies are for the use of that, for those, for the items that we'll be funding. So I'd like to have a staff report on policy for the items that will be funded under that item.
Okay, is there support for that?
I would support that. And I think what I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I want to make sure I understand that you're looking for, is that the municipal code or is it the police handbook that provides the information about how police equipment is used?
It would be the department policies on how that equipment is used.
Is that public information? City manager?
The information, most of that information is on our website.
So you want to include it as a part of the package, as part of the agenda item?
I would like that. I would like some discussion. I would like for the council to be able to have that discussion.
I'll support that.
Councilman Pettin?
No, I don't support it. I think when we discuss the item, we can discuss whatever it is you need to bring up at that time. So I don't support it.
There won't be a staff report.
I don't need a staff report.
So I'm not going to support it until we have the new police chief on board and a chance to get his feet wet and so forth, because I think it's an important enough topic that, you know, he should be a part of that discussion or here for that discussion.
Well, actually, I think it's possible that the police chief will be on board at that point.
A week? I mean, that's not fair.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you want to move it out till the second meeting in June then, Kathy, so he has time?
I don't know that we know when he's going to be on board, and I don't think it's fair to commit to a date that quick at this point.
Mr. Fiala, do we have an idea of when our new police chief will be on board?
He's slated to join us after Memorial Weekend. I will say though, he is expecting his first grandchild. So I am working with him on the flexibility of that start date. So if it occurs before, it's not an issue, but if it occurs after, his start date might extend to the first week in June.
Could we bifurcate the staff report then so that the body cam equipment is separated from the funding for the, I know it's tasers.
We're discussing the item now. So
no, I'm just talking about just splitting it up into two votes. I've never said, am I for or against it? We didn't have a staff report. I don't know, city attorney may be still on the line.
Yeah, he is.
I would appreciate that if we had two different items and they could come forward at different times.
Yes, to the extent.
I'm sorry.
As you know, that the item number 7 is a purchase agreement. And so, yes, if you wanted to agendize a discussion of use and training policy, that is a completely separate item. So either way that works, those are different items. So when the item comes back to you on June 2nd, item number 7, it will be limited to the purchase of the equipment.
Right. I was asking for a companion item for the discussion of use and policy. So I would be very open to having those two items scheduled separately if we can get council support to do that.
I'd support that.
Councilman Pettin? Councilmember Pettin?
No.
I'm not ready to do it. I'd like to see the chief get on board and let him get his feet wet and figure out what he thinks needs to be done. And at that point, then I'd be open to possibly scheduling it.
If we take a vote on this tonight, we have a 2-2. How does that move forward?
So nothing, my understanding is nothing happens then, other than we will have the continuation. We will have item 7 heard at the June 2nd meeting.
That's correct, Vice Mayor.
Okay. All
So
right.
I thought I heard you say, Kathy, that you're okay waiting until the police chief is on board. And you also said that you don't feel that he would be prepared to address this item on the June 2nd meeting. So those seem to be two items that don't necessarily agree with one another. So I'm unclear what you would like to see.
You know, I'm open to, I thought I was pretty clear. I'm open to having a discussion potentially at some point, but I don't think it's fair to bring a new leader on board, which could be a day or two before the meeting, and expect to have that kind of a discussion. And at some point when he is on board and gotten his feet wet and, you know, understanding his department a bit, yeah, then it may make sense. But to try to, you know, just get it done June 2nd or June 16th, I don't think that's realistic.
Okay, you know, can I say, I appreciate Vice Mayor Narum that you're open to having this discussion. But I have to question. I've been told already working with our executive team, and Chief Swing is an experienced police chief. I don't think that this will be anything new to him. And really, it is a discussion of what our current policies are. And I don't think it would take him more than an hour to become familiar with that if he isn't already. So I really don't understand why there would be any delay. I think he's probably been chomping at the bit to start his job and move forward. So I don't understand why there would be a need for delay.
Well, first off, you're speaking for him, and you know, I would rather hear him say that. I mean, you're basically putting words in his mouth, and he isn't even on board yet.
I'm saying that he's an experienced police chief.
You know what, I understand, and I'm not going to argue with you. I am not supportive of doing this right off the bat. So if we're going to argue about it, then I'm just going to, you know, I will withdraw any support and leave it at that.
Okay, well, we'll readdress it in future then, I guess.
That's fine.
Okay,
but
that was my list.
Into an argument about semantics or, you know, what the chief may or may not be familiar with. I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think it's fair, quite frankly. So with that, we're going to move on to council reports. Councilman Penton, do you?
No reports right now.
Okay. Councilmember Testa?
No reports.
Councilmember Brown?
Very quiet. No reports.
So I've been busy. We had a Valley Links meeting virtually. We all had to put up the Valley Links background. It was kind of cool, but Valley Links is moving on. They maybe had to take just a little bit of a step back because the projected ridership is so good that they need to be looking at 12-minute headways, which means a little bit redesign of the track, of the double tracking. But overall, things are moving forward, and I think Mayor Marchand and I and Councilmember Hernandez from Dublin are all excited at the prospect, even though it's years away. So with that, if there's no other reports, then we're adjourned for the evening. And good night.
Good night.